Earlier in my career, I worked at a VC-backed startup called Contactually, where I was in a bunch of individual executor and builder roles associated with RevOps. First role was an AE role in inside sales, selling to people who are interested in buying a CRM for realtors. So I was talking to a lot of realtors. I then ended up being the customer onboarding manager and reducing churn for all of our customers that were subscribing to the SaaS platform. And then ended up going to customer success and building out a premium service option that was highly premiumly priced, figured out how to sell it with webinar sales, and managed a team of people delivering a coaching plus SaaS subscription type of product. At the time, I was very, very engaged with all of those people who were running the operations of marketing and sales because it was a small company and it was growing really quickly. It was eventually acquired by Compass. If you know the real estate company Compass, they oftentimes tout themselves as a tech company that is in real estate and is a real estate brokerage. They used the Contactually platform to eventually become the CRM that all of the realtors that work with Compass use and what Compass provides to all of their realtors. So that particular role at the time, I was executing the actual sales work. I was executing and building out onboarding systems for clients. At the time, it wasn't called RevOps. Revenue operations wasn't a thing at that particular point in time. Now it's become a pretty big concept that anybody uses that is trying to get more out of their marketing and sales process to be able to grow and outpace that growth from the people that they're hiring. Since that time, I went on to found my own startup that was a marketplace during the pandemic called Tasting Club for virtual tasting experiences, and then eventually be the COO of a digital marketing agency that was helping many clients do their actual revenue operations. The interesting thing about digital marketing agencies is that as soon as you start executing the services for somebody, you end up finding out that the systems and the infrastructure that you're executing the services on oftentimes aren't sound, and you need to go in and fix a lot of that work. So you end up doing RevOps whenever you're doing digital marketing work or agency work in general to help people get more leads, more sales calls, and more sales. At the time, like I mentioned, this wasn't called RevOps. It was just the messy work that you had to do in order to make marketing, sales, and your customer service teams not be three companies in one, but actually all be one company operating together to accomplish the same goal. If you look up what revenue operations is, you're going to find some definition that is the alignment of marketing, sales, and customer service around one revenue process. And that is technically correct, but it really tells you nothing that you need to know or understand in order to actually utilize this well. So rather than that, I'm going to go through and talk about what revenue ops really is so that's actually valuable for you as a founder. This video is definitely for you if you feel like your marketing and sales team are arguing about what a lead is, wasn't what a lead isn't. If your marketing team is saying that sales isn't following up the leads that they're generating, if the sales team is saying that all the leads that marketing is generating are not good, if you don't trust the numbers in your pipeline and the data in your CRM, if you feel like every time you try and forecast something or you have a board and you have to bring a report to them that you're spending hours and hours double checking the numbers and making sure that the information that you've got is actually accurate, that you're going to be reporting. If you feel like there's churn that's happening in your business and you don't really understand why there's churn, if you're a recurring revenue business, all of these things are symptomatic of having revenue operations problems in your business. So if that's you, stick around and listen to the rest of this. You probably have a real business with a real product or service, a real team, real customers, real sales motion, and somewhere around getting to that million, a little over revenue mark, it probably started to feel like the business was getting harder and harder to run, that things were fragile, that were feeling like they were just sort of being held together with duct tape. And Like I mentioned, like this is oftentimes a factor of not having the right operations in place to make it feel like, yep, we know what we're doing. We have a repeatable process that's predictable. And one of the areas that that can show up is in your revenue operations. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly what revenue operations actually is. I'm going to go through the 4 stages that every revenue engine moves through in particular. I've got a particular process and model that helps you understand this. And by the end, you're going to know whether your business is really having a RevOps problem and what you should do about it if you actually do have a RevOps problem. So stick with me and let's get into it. So first off, what marketing ops really is treating marketing, sales, and customer success as one machine that makes the company more money rather than thinking about it as 3 different departments that each optimize their own little corner and their own little metrics for themselves that then sometimes create conflicts and competition between the 3. We need to be thinking about it as one cohesive unit that has a process that is intentionally designed and that we move customers through a customer journey that is designed specifically. We define what the customer journey is, and then we make the tools and the systems reflect that customer journey. Oftentimes what I see when I'm working with companies is that they ended up getting tools and then they started crafting unintentionally the customer experience and the customer journey around those tools and around the features that those particular tools had, rather than thinking about what are the emotions, what are the things that I want my customers to feel and experience going through the customer journey with our business. I'm going to use Contactually as a bit of an example as we continue to go through this video. So as an example, Contactually, you'd think about marketing. Marketing is counting the leads of realtors that it is generating. Sales is going to count the number of closed deals for individual realtors or the enterprise brokerage deals that are being sold. And then the customer success team is going to be measuring net revenue retention. So that is really what you see with like 3 scoreboards, 3 truths, and handoffs between them. That's where the revenue really leaks out of the business and you find problems oftentimes. RevOps is really the discipline that makes it one scoreboard and one truth amongst all of those different groups. I think the thing to keep in your mind, and maybe the line that helps you remember this RevOps stuff, is RevOps is not a tool. It is not a hire that you make. It is the system that lets businesses make more money without having to have a founder or one particular person involved in every single part of that process. So first of all, let me cover like what RevOps is not. So RevOps is not a CRM. RevOps is not a new hire. RevOps is not just sales ops with a new name. Okay. So as we go through each one of these, the CRM, right? CRM is where data lives. It's where processes happen. It's where we can measure what's going on in the RevOps process across marketing, sales, and customer service, customer success. And that we need to be able to trust that data that's in that particular system and know that we can act on it appropriately. We can have 100K HubSpot instance and not have really good RevOps going on. So it's not the tools. The tools that we have, like marketing automation systems and demand signal tools and all the things that you'll see on LinkedIn right now, tons of people talking about go-to-market and how to use AI and go-to-market tools. All of those tools are really, really useful, but it's not RevOps. RevOps is the more of a philosophy around how we're using all of those things to be able to craft what would be an optimal customer journey for our customers. Got to stay customer-centric in our approach and our thinking. If we start getting ourselves-centric, we start getting marketing-centric or sales-centric or customer success centric, we're going to start missing the thread for what is really important, and that is the experience of the customers to try and help us generate this positive flywheel and momentum to make sales and new customers easier and easier and easier over time. I also mentioned that RevOps is not a single hire that you make into your business. If you've got broken systems, if you've got bad data, if you've got a whole bunch of RevOps debt that needs to get paid down. Hiring that person is just going to have you have one more person in your organization in a broken system. Yeah, you're maybe hiring that person to be able to fix that system, and that's why you're bringing them in. But sometimes the right approach is just taking the person that you have that is in sales, is in marketing, is in customer success, that shows a propensity for doing operations work, and moving that person into that sort of a role since they already have all the context, and then getting them somebody that can coach them on how to do that job within your company that much better, rather than, say, hiring a chief revenue officer or a head of RevOps that's going to cost you a lot of money. Promote internally within, find the advising and the coaching outside is what I would recommend. The other thing that I mentioned there is that it's not sales ops, right? Sales ops is, yes, a part of revenue operations, but it is very sales focused. And so revenue operations is thinking about sales ops, but it's thinking about how sales operations connects with and is related to the marketing operations and the customer success, customer service work that is getting done once you actually sell the product or the service that you are selling. So how do you know if you have a RevOps problem or not? Well, you have a RevOps problem if marketing and sales are arguing about the lead quality instead of fixing it. You have a CRM that you feel like is a graveyard that nobody trusts. If your sales cycle keeps getting longer and longer and nobody can really tell you why. If onboarding is different every time, depending upon who's doing the onboarding of that new client or that new customer. If churn spikes and you don't really know why, or it goes the opposite direction and you don't really know why, you might have a RevOps problem. If every forecast that you do feels like it's a fictional story that you're making up, you might have a RevOps problem. And if growth ever feels like, oh, every time you have to grow, you just have to spend more money to grow, and you're not actually picking up momentum, either having to spend more marketing dollars or hire another person every single time you want to grow, then you might have a revenue problem, a RevOps problem then as well. None of those are marketing problems. I think most of the time when people think about growth problems, they think like, oh, I just need to be doing better marketing. We need to get more effective with our ads. We need to get better with generating viral posts on organic social such that we get more reach and more eyeballs and more conversions on our website and more leads to be able to get into our funnel. Most of the time, everybody thinks of growth problems as we just need more leads. And oftentimes that's not the case. At a certain point, like, yep, you got to get that right at the beginning. But if you just keep dumping leads into a leaky revenue operations process, there could be a lot of money that you are leaving on the table. And I think that's the way to think about it more so from a RevOps perspective is, how are we tightening this process up and making sure that things aren't leaking out of our funnel, that they're not leaking out of our flywheel that we're starting to generate momentum on? How are we losing momentum in that flywheel? One of the things that I've done to help explain this and help my clients be able to understand a baseline, a benchmark for what to work towards when we're working together. So I've built this RevOps Maturity Model that sort of breaks down into 4 stages. Every single company is in one of these 4 stages when it comes to their RevOps engine, their revenue operations in general. And it breaks down into 4 stages: the reactive stage, the repeatable stage, predictable, and compounding. And here's a quick visual that we can use to just show this. So like I said, it breaks down into these 4 stages. This RevOps Maturity Model, we've got a reactive stage, a repeatable stage, a predictable stage, and a compounding stage. The first one, this reactive stage here, this is really early on for companies. This is founder is the one that is the source of all the leads. It's always referrals. It's always network. There isn't some other sort of like repeatable lead source that's happening here. And the founder is oftentimes just, involved in every single little bit of it. These competencies here are the things that really need to get worked on so that you have the right foundation to be able to grow from reactive into the next stage, which is repeatable. Repeatable is now the state in which It's feeling like we've got a good foundation underneath us. We're starting to get to the point where we can repeat a sales motion, a marketing motion, a sales motion, a customer success motion on a very consistent, regular basis. And it's something that is starting to just feel stable. Like I said, the data in the CRM is correct. We're starting to enter information there on a consistent basis. We have handoff processes that are consistent from marketing to sales and sales to customer service. We have an ability to be able to onboard people into our team into the future because we have particular operating playbooks and training playbooks for new people that come onto the team. So those are the types of things that you think about when you're at the repeatable stage. When you get to the predictable stage, this is when we're starting to feel really good about the data, and we're starting to do things like forecasting. We're starting to be able to set quotas and really understand territories for sales reps. We are doing better win-loss analysis of our deals to have a better understanding of why people are buying or why people are not buying. We are doing renewals and expansion conversations with existing clients if you're on a recurring revenue business, and you're structuring those really appropriately and repeating those time and time again in the same way. So these are the sorts of things that really get you to a much more sophisticated, much more mature understanding of, great, we're going to do a forecast for Q3, and we're actually hitting it within 10% of what that is on a regular basis. That predictability really improves the overall value of the business that you have. And then finally, you get to a compounding, which is really like a self-learning. There's not a ton of competencies here. All of the other infrastructure that's been put in place has really maximized this and gotten to this point now. And now we're doing scenario modeling, we're doing growth scoring to help us understand how we need to continuously iterate, improve, experiment with what it is that we're already doing to improve the revenue generation of the company day in and day out. I think a key thing to point out here is that you'll notice that each one of these things that you're seeing, this is not an effort problem. It's a systems and process problem. You can't jump from the reactive stage to the repeatable stage by just working harder. You have to improve the process and the systems, and you have to have the team and the people understand those processes and systems such that it lives and breathes outside of just having the founder be the person that knows these things. Once we're starting to do that, that's when we're going to get some traction. That's where we're going to see the improvement. You can't hustle your way out of these problems. Do you actually need RevOps in your company? I would say that you need RevOps. Well, you definitely don't need RevOps if you're like a 5-person company and you're just still trying to find like product market fit. You need to sell. You need to just like talk to as many people as you can in as scrappy as a way as you can to just like sell and get initial revenue and find some product market fit. But usually somewhere around like this 2 to 3 million mark and having a real team, that's when you need to start thinking about the overall revenue operations and getting a little bit more intentional with those sorts of processes. I think I pulled some like stats here from like some of the research that's been done around revenue operations and the industries that use it. And it's really become much more widespread now. So Forrester in particular found companies with a real RevOps function see meaningfully faster revenue growth and higher profitability than those without. Gartner projected that a large majority of the highest growth companies would run on a RevOps model. It is roughly half of companies now, up from a third a few years ago. So this idea of really thinking about these departments as one unit and needing to have somebody that is responsible for making sure that the operations of all of these things is in sync has absolutely caught fire at this point. You'll see that in terms of when you search revenue operations, like how many jobs there are out there. There's lots and lots of jobs for revenue operations. So Know that it is a thing that many companies are investing in, is a good foundation for you to be thinking about how you do operations for those teams in your company as well. Just make sure that you are at a large enough stage to really be able to take advantage of that investment. If you came and talked to me about it, I would tell you immediately if it was something that like, nope, you know what, this is not going to be a good fit. I'll tell you if that's the case. One thing I would say though is if you are already resonating with some of those symptoms that I was talking about earlier that really, are indicators of needing or having RevOps problems, you don't need a McKinsey consultant to help you with these things. These concepts are not that difficult. They just take a little bit of time and intention to be able to implement well. It takes a little bit of knowledge about how to use the tools and the systems and the data and getting all of those things syncing and operating correctly, knowing how to train people that are using those systems on how to do the handoffs and that and the like. So you don't need to go above and be or overboard on thinking about the solutions to these things by any means. I'll just do a little note here on AI, and because of the fact that there are so many people talking about how to implement AI in marketing, sales, and customer success and how to optimize things, I think what you see is there's a lot of people that are jumping straight to the tools, straight to trying to layer AI workflows on top of things that are probably pretty suspect foundations. It's pretty difficult to make AI work in a messy system. You have to clean up the system. You have to pay down the RevOps debt that you have first and foremost before you start layering on AI to make it that much more efficient, that much faster, and to get a lot of the things that everybody wants to get out of implementing AI workflows and tools into your RevOps functions. So if you don't feel like you have a good foundation of these things yet, and you don't feel like you can trust a lot of the tools, systems, processes that you have, I would hesitate to start adding on AI on top of it, because AI is not going to fix that. It's just going to make it worse. It's going to make the mess messier. So think about that before you start just quickly going and grabbing and adopting AI tools. You want to have a strategy for how do we make sure that we've got a good foundation first before you start layering those things on. I think to bring this all full circle, I spent a lot of time in sales roles, in customer success roles, in marketing roles, and building out the revenue operations systems in a lot of these places. And I think the thing that is most important that I want founders to understand and know is that this revenue operation system, if you're at this point where this is something that you need, this is how you make sure that leads, sales, service for your customers operates independent of you. It becomes the business, and it doesn't become you doing it all the time or you having to supervise or manage. All of these processes and our systems are helping you code these things in such that other people can do these things independently, and you can let go of a lot of those items and do so with confidence. Once you get to the point where you start to be in this repeatable and predictable RevOps phase, you have a lot of reporting and data to show you where the problems are so that you can strategically dive into the things that you need to dive into and know that everything else is operating as it should, and you don't have to be double checking things all the time. So it really is, from a founder's psychology perspective, worth the investment. And you'll see in the bottom line that it's definitely worth the investment once you start making those changes and implementing these processes that help with all of these problems that I've been describing for you. If you want to know for yourself how you are doing and which one of these stages you're in, I have a little scorecard tool that you can go and take. I'll link it in the description below for you. Just go to the website, answer a couple questions, and you'll get a good baseline on where you're currently sitting with your existing revenue operations and what you can do about it from there. Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.